IRCC. Yes, we are real people that work within the federal government, but we are also here to answer questions and be able to help and support employers. That is my main role and responsibility, as we know that immigration can be a key part of economic growth for labor mobility, and knowing that it also can be maybe a challenge to navigate sometimes because, of course, the websites have a lot of information. So we're here to try to kind of answer those questions and give you a full picture of the immigration continuum and how that might apply for you in your workplace. Or if you work with employers, then how can you maybe let them know about our services so that if they have questions, you can redirect them to our services so that we can help them support the temporary foreign workers that are here in your community. So as you can see, there are a number of outreach officers spread out across Canada, so depending on where employers are, that's how we are connecting with employers. So I have myself and I have one other colleague also based out of Winnipeg, and we both provide support in Manitoba and Saskatchewan. My specific team, I work on the promotion of Francophone immigration. So that's also part of why I'm here, because as you'll see later, Prince Albert has recently been recognized as a welcoming Francophone community. And so knowing a little bit that you're part of that community and that you're here to be able to support newcomers in their contribution to the vitality of the Francophone community here in Prince Albert, and what that means in terms of resources for you as a community. We provide information sessions like we're doing today, but we can also talk to employers one-on-one. So if there's a specific labor shortage, you're looking for specific candidates, or if you have someone that's already identified but you're wondering what path to take for immigration in order to hire that individual, that's where we can come in and provide that one-on-one support. And we're also here to learn about your experience using immigration so that we can help inform policy and programs. So I also want to know how that's working for you, what are some of the challenges or what are some of the gaps that you might see as a user of immigration for your labor needs, to be able to bring that information back. Now, I also recognize that over the past couple of months, immigration has seen a lot of changes. And so it's been, as you know, in the media, and also a lot of questions around the changes that have happened. So I'm also here to kind of demystify a little bit about what that means for you as an employer, still being able to access international foreign talent, but also how does that look like for those that are already in your workplace, and what different resources you have access to. So with that, the immigration levels are reviewed on a yearly basis, and so recently the Canadian government announced that we will be reducing the levels of immigration in 2025 based on the 2024 levels. And what that really looks like is that over the course of the post-pandemic economic recovery, we had really pushed an increase in immigration. So there was a heightened push to immigration, and now we're really just returning to pre-pandemic levels of immigration. So the immigration is still very much a pathway to be able to fill labor needs. It's just that we have come back to those pre-pandemic levels. So as you can see here, we're looking at permanent resident applications going back to about that 395,000. So it has gone down from last year by 21%. We've also, for the first time, added a cap to the number of both international students as well as temporary foreign workers, so work permits, new work permits that we are going to be accepting for the 2025. So that is new for IRCC in terms of providing kind of a maximum of those study permits and work permits that we will be issuing this year. A lot of the questions that I get from employers, how does that impact maybe temporary foreign workers who are already in the workplace? So renewals of work permits for individuals that are already here in Canada are not part of the count of new work permits permits that we will be issuing. So just so that is clear. What I do like to highlight, as I mentioned, francophone mobility being a priority for the Government of Canada, is that within the numbers that we have indicated, we are also committed to a specific percentage of those individuals coming through francophone immigration. So we are committed to under the permanent resident program. I think it's 8.5% in this year, 9.5% next year, and 10% the following year. So there's a lot of advantages that I'll talk about in how to be able to find bilingual French-speaking talent that meet specific initiatives that will help to attract and retain francophone bilingual skilled talent. Hello, welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Please feel free to join. So now, I always like to just provide a little bit of a base when we're talking about immigration, because there's specific language that we talk about, and just making sure that we're all on the same page. So I'll cover kind of the baseline, and then we'll go into a little bit more detail, because I already talked about temporary resident, permanent resident. So what does that mean? When we're talking about temporary residents, it's any person that has the authorization to work in Canada, study in Canada, or visit in Canada. So depending on the primary activity that an individual has the intention of doing when they come here in Canada, they have to apply for one of the 3 different types of temporary statuses. So either a work permit, a study permit, or a visitor's permit. And that gives them the authorization to do that activity for the duration that's indicated on their immigration document. It is a temporary authorization, so there is an expiry date to that document, and it's important for both the individual to know when that end date is for their immigration status, but for you as an employer to also recognize that there is an expiry date, and that it's important to renew that document if the intention is for that individual to stay for a prolonged period, so that they can continue to do the activity that they have intentions of doing while they're here in Canada. Now, various pathways, once an individual has indicated that they have intentions of wanting to stay for a prolonged period of time, maybe want to contribute a little bit more to the Canadian economy on a permanent basis, they can apply then for what we call a permanent residency. Permanent residency allows the individual to then have the same freedoms of movement and liberties as all other Canadian citizens and permanent residents. So they no longer have to apply for that work authorization. They have the mobility to work in any province in Canada, province or territory. The real difference, it's also a pathway towards citizenship, and the biggest difference between permanent residency and citizenship is that as a permanent resident, you're not allowed to vote. You do not have the authorization to hold a valid passport, Canadian passport, or to sit on a jury of your peers. So that transition from permanent residency to citizenship allows for those changes in your ability to contribute to the Canadian economy in that way. Any questions on that? Right. So when we talk about now, specifically when we're talking with employers, we'll talk about what it looks like to have that application for a work permit and what kinds of work permit are issued to temporary foreign workers. So there's 2 types of work permit that exist within IRCC, one being a closed work permit. The closed work permit is really the most frequent work permit that we will see, and it is really relying on the employer to identify that there is a need for the labor shortage, based on the labor shortage, that there is a need to fill that position for a temporary basis with a foreign skilled worker. So the employer will identify that they were unable to fill the position with a Canadian citizen, permanent resident, First Nations person already in the community. And once they've established that, then they can apply to IRCC to see if they can support a qualified individual to come here on a temporary basis with a work permit. With that work permit, what's indicated on that work permit is the employer's name. So the person is only authorized to work for the employer. for the duration of the contract of employment. So again, that end date that's on the contract of employment. It'll also specify the location. So if an individual or an employer has multiple locations, indicating the multiple locations will allow flexibility for the employee to be able to move between locations, but really the location is also indicated on the work permit. It'll also indicate the occupation. So what profession is the person coming here to work within? And so they are limited to working for the contract and the employer that is indicated on that work permit. There are occasions where IRCC will issue what we call an open work permit. And the open work permit will have on the work permit, it will say employer open, which allows the individual to work for any employer for the duration of the validity of their work permit. So it'll also have an expiry date on that open work permit. And then the location will be open, and so the individual can go typically wherever they meet the requirements of the employment. So again, it's really for you to be able to recognize when I look at a work permit, what am I looking for? If an individual states that they have an open work permit, you ask them to see the work permit and you'll see open on there and making sure that the date is still valid. When an individual has received an offer of employment and comes with their work permit, you can then validate that they have your name as the employer, the location, and the date that was issued for the authorization to work. Open work permits, we typically see them for recent graduates of international study programs. So you might have university students that are issued with what we call a postgraduate work permit, and that is an open work permit. Typically they have like a 3-year open work permit. What's important for individuals who are any of you, have you hired or know individuals in this community with postgraduate work permits? Yeah?
I am.
Okay,
yeah,
so
Flora is doing like, I'm on the PGWP holding for 1 year,
okay.
but I'm working full time for Flora.
Okay, so open work permit is a great resource as an employer because it gives you flexibility. You can also move within the employment, so you have the ability to move in different positions. But what's important for an employer to know is towards the end of the expiry of the open work permit, if an individual hasn't expressed interest in becoming a permanent resident or hasn't been selected yet for permanent residency, then there is a need to know how to apply for that closed work permit in order to retain the individual in the workplace. Okay, so it's important to kind of have the idea of, okay, who in my employment has open work permits, closed work permits, and what do I need in order to retain them? So I talked a little bit about international students. So both international students during the period of study have the authorization to work, typically on campus and off campus. It will say on the study permit, authorized to work off campus. And currently, IRCC's policy is to allow international students to work for 24 hours per week while they are in study. And when they are on break, they have the opportunity to work full-time hours. So that's a great source, but again, if an international student then graduates, if they have access to that postgraduate work permit, open work permit, you can keep them in the workplace. If they don't have access to the postgrad work permit, but they want to stay and you're willing to support them with an offer of employment, then how can you get them that closed work permit so that they can stay in your workplace? So again, I talked about that postgraduate work permit. There has been changes to the postgraduate work permit eligibility criteria. And so both the language requirements are now required when applying for that work permit. And there is only specific in study programs that will be eligible for postgraduate work permits. So if there are individuals that are in those positions or that are used to having that source of skilled workers in their workplace, knowing the changes can also be valuable in the event that it could affect your ability to utilize those international students. Okay, so we talked about the different types of work permits, and now we're kind of saying, okay, how do I get those work permits or those offers of employment? So there's two different pathways for an employer to be able to indicate to IRCC that they're interested in making an offer of employment and that they're looking to fill their position with a skilled temporary foreign worker. So both the the temporary foreign worker program requires what we call the labor market impact assessment, an LMIA, and there's also a number of LMIA exemptions under the International Mobility Program. And I'm going to give you examples of both of those. So just so that you know, once you've identified the need of a temporary foreign worker, once we've identified, okay, which pathway to use, then the instructions are a little bit different on how you would proceed with the offer of employment. So the first one, under the temporary foreign worker program, there has been some changes within the temporary foreign worker program for individuals or for employers to be able to get what we call a positive LMIA. So the requirements for the LMIA is that you demonstrate to IRCC or to ESDC, so Employment and Social Development Canada, issues the LMIA. You have to show them that you've attempted to fill your position with a Canadian citizen or permanent resident or First Nations person already in the community. So you have to post your job for 3 months and demonstrate that you were unable to fill that position with a qualified individual. One of those 3 formats is using the job bank of the Government of Canada. So you have to post on job bank to be able to demonstrate that you've tried to find qualified candidates. Once you've posted for 3 months and you were unsuccessful at meeting that, finding that position, you then can apply for the labor market impact assessment. So the labor market impact assessment, you submit a form indicating all of the criterias and why you were unable to fill the position. You submit that to ESDC. They take about 2 months to respond to an LMIA request, and it costs an employer $1,000 per position that they're looking to fill. So after 2 months, you receive a positive LMIA. You now have 6 months to be able to use that LMIA with a qualified individual. So when you find the temporary foreign worker that you'd like to make an offer of employment to, you give them the LMIA and they use that LMIA in order to apply for a work permit to IRCC. Okay? So there's a lot that happens in kind of demonstrating that there is a need to fill a position with a temporary foreign worker. So 3 months for the posting of a job, 2 months to receive an evaluation from ESDC, $1,000 for the employer, and then the time that it takes to find the qualified individual. And then once the individual applies to IRCC for the work permit, then the processing times for the work permit will start. So again, depending on the country of origin of the individual, the processing times may vary. So I tell you this because it can be a lengthy process for an individual or for an employer, so that you can plan ahead in your staffing and know where your gaps are and how long you might need in order to be able to fill that position. On top of that, you need to know whether or not your position that you're looking to fill falls under one of the 2 streams of ESDC. They consider them based on low wage and high wage. So it's not necessarily based on the position, but based on the wage that is associated with the occupation that you're looking to fill. And then there has been some changes specifically to the low wage stream. And the links that are embedded in my presentation will bring you to the information, and I will share with the chamber my presentation so that you have access to it. But for you to know, specifically in the low wage stream, some of the things that have changed for employers is being able to recognize that there is a cap of the number of temporary foreign worker to Canadian citizen permanent residents you have within the workplace. So you can't have more than 10% temporary foreign workers in your workplace when you're applying for an LMIA. So if you have more than that 10%, your LMIA will be refused. So it is part of the evaluation when applying for an LMIA. So having an idea of the profiles of the individuals, the timelines of when their applications or when their work permits will expire, because you have to apply for that LMIA probably 6 months in advance in order to know whether or not the individual can apply for that work permit, maintain their status in your workplace. We're not in a census metropolitan area, so you don't necessarily have to worry about the 6% or higher of unemployment rate. But it is important, like I said, the validity date of the open LMIA, so you have 6 months to fill that. The LMIA is only good for an offer of employment of 1 year work permit under the low wage stream. So that's also something that has changed. So you can only get a 1 year work permit. At the end of that 1 year, you have to demonstrate whether or not there is still that vacancy and that the inability to fill that position in order to request a new LMIA, again, paying $1,000 and renewing the work permit. I'm setting all this up to be aware so that you can start planning ahead, because all these changes have really come into effect and can affect the employment in your ability to serve and to continue with your economic growth. But also wanting to let you know that there are solutions to some of these constraints that have come into place. And so if you are wanting to know a little bit more about the LMIA exemptions, we have about 50 different LMIA exemptions within IRCC that are there and that are created based on the social, economic, and cultural benefits to the Canadian economy. So I won't go through all 50 of them. It's so that you are aware that I am here to be able to help once you've identified the candidate, to say, hey, Bridget, we've got this one individual that really meets the skills that we need in order to maintain and grow our business. Are there any exemptions based on where the individual is located? We might have a free trade agreement with that country. We might be able to find an LMIA exemption for you to be able to make an offer of employment. And also for you to be aware that there are specific LMIA exemptions if you find candidates under the Francophone mobility pathway. So that is where I'm going to let you know about the various advantages of finding a bilingual Francophone speaking candidate so that you can bring them here under an LMIA exemption and you don't have to go through all of those steps in demonstrating to ESDC that you can't fill that position, and it kind of helps with the cap within your workplace as well. So just before going into the Francophone mobility, I always like talking about the National Occupation Classification. National Occupation Classification is kind of like a big dictionary that indicates all of the occupations that are within Canada. So everyone has a 5-digit code associated with the profession, and when you're looking to fill a position, you need to know what that 5-digit code is in order to be able to make an offer of employment. It's a great tool to be able to identify what the roles and responsibilities are that are linked to the profession that you're looking to fill. And so, like I said, every single profession has a 5-digit code, and every occupation is also classified in a different tier level. So recognizing the tier level will help navigate which immigration program you'll have access to. So tier stands for the training, education, experience, and responsibilities associated to the NOC code. And a quick and easy way for you to know what tier level the occupation is in, within a 5-digit number. So if you look at the transport truck drivers, it's NOC code 73300. The second digit of the 5-digit code is a 3, and so it's in a tier 3 level occupation. Okay, so once you've identified, and again, there is a link on being able to identify what NOC code your position you're looking to fill. Once you've identified that, you see which tier level, and then you're like, okay, now I know, will it maybe fit in a low wage, will it fit in a high wage, or what programs within immigration can this individual qualify for based on the level of experience required to be in the workplace. Any questions on the NOC codes? Good? All right, we always tell employers, because the title that you give that profession might not be the one that's indicated in the NOC code exactly, so always focus more on the roles, responsibilities, and the level of education required for the position that you're looking to fill, and then find the right code and title based on what is indicated in the ESDC classification bank. And that's what we then use at IRCC to see, is the individual that you've made an offer of employment, do they have that education level? Can they demonstrate that they have the experience in that profession in order to be able to fill that position once they arrive here in Canada? Okay, so what are the benefits? What is the alternate pathway for you as an employer that might be a little bit more, how do I say, it really is a facilitative for you to be able to find a qualified candidate that reduces the need to use that LMIA. And as I mentioned, it is a priority for the Government of Canada to support Francophone immigration as we're looking to reestablish the demographic weight and the vitality of the Francophone communities outside of Quebec. And as I mentioned, Prince Albert being a Francophone welcoming community, it gives you an added advantage to be able to welcome these individuals in the community, knowing that there are resources to be able to support them in their livelihoods in French here in the community. So Francophone mobility is an LMIA exempt pathway. So for you as an employer, currently we have the eligibility criteria of all National Occupation Classification tier codes. So any position you are looking to fill qualifies for a Francophone mobility pathway, with the exception of the agriculture positions in tiers 4 and 5. I will say we opened up tiers 4 and 5 for Francophone mobility in June of 2023, and it was a pilot for 2 years. So that means in June of 2025, the Government of Canada will evaluate whether or not they will maintain the expansion of Francophone mobility to keep tiers 4 and 5, or they might go back to the previous eligibility criteria of tiers 0 to 3. So if you're looking to fill tiers 4 and 5, highly encourage you to look and plan and try and fill those positions before June, because I can't guarantee that after that you will be eligible. It's important to be able to demonstrate that you're looking to fill a position outside of the province of Quebec, so you meet that requirement. And employers often ask me, but does the position that I'm looking to fill isn't in French, and that's okay. So you could be looking to fill a English position in your workplace, the individual is bilingual, they meet the Francophone criteria by wanting to contribute to the community outside of the workplace. But for you as an employer, they also have the advantage of being able to serve your clients in both official languages. So having both official languages really is an added advantage for you as an employer. IRCC does not do the evaluation of the English language skills of individuals, so it's up to the employer to determine what level of English is required in the workplace for the individual to be successful. We do require a language proficiency of an NCLC level 5 or higher, so the individual, when they apply for the work permit under Francophone mobility, will have to submit documents demonstrating that they have the French language skills in order to meet that pathway. There is no age or country nationality criteria associated with this pathway, so an individual might meet the language requirements as a second or third language. So it is an advantage for you as an employer to ask if they have the French language skills and see if they might be able to meet the Francophone mobility depending on where they're coming from. Again, the candidate must meet all other requirements for a work permit, so making sure that they can still meet the qualifications for a work permit, and on top of that provide the language proficiency to be able to demonstrate that. So as you can see, it is a quicker process. It does not require the LMIA, so now you're wondering, okay, that's fine and dandy, what do I need to do? So once you've identified the individual that you're looking to fill the position with, you confirm that they have the French language skills in order to meet Francophone mobility, and you can go straight onto the IRCC employer portal. You indicate the information of the candidate that you're looking to hire, the offer of employment goes directly to IRCC, and instead of paying $1,000 for an LMIA, You pay $230 for your offer of employment, so it really does reduce the cost of applying for that offer of employment, IRCC. Then you, within minutes, you'll get what we call an offer of employment number. It starts with the letter A followed by 7 digits, and you give that number to the qualifying candidate who uses that to apply for their work permit. The individual then applies for their work permit, pays $155 for the work permit, and is also responsible for the biometrics fee. And then we'll evaluate the work permit and the offer of employment, and then issue the work permit so that they can come over. So it reduces time because you do not have to post your job for 3 months. If you know there's a vacancy and you fill it with a bilingual candidate, you can make the offer of employment right away. And you don't have to wait 2 months to be able to get that confirmation. You'll get that number within a couple of minutes, and you can give that to your candidate. And so you're really just looking at the processing delays of a work permit. So it reduces time and fee in that way for you as an employer once you found a candidate. Right. I like talking a little bit about the renewal process of a work permit because, like I said, it's really important for you as an employer to have an idea of what type of work your individuals have, and also the timeline that individuals have their work permit authorization, so that you can plan to make the proper renewal if you're looking to retain that individual in the workplace. So it is your responsibility to again apply for whether it's a new LMIA or a new offer of employment in the employer portal and plan ahead. So if you need to do that LMIA 6 months before the expiry of a current work permit, if it's an LMIA exemption, I always just ask an employer to make sure that they still have access to their IRCC employer portal, so that they can make that offer of employment. If they can make the offer of employment and get that A number right away, then as long as the individual submits the application for a work permit renewal before the expiry of the current one, then they maintain their status, which means they can continue to work for you while we process their work permit. If we miss the date and it's a couple of days after the expiry of the current work permit, the individual no longer has authorization to work while we process their application. They can remain in Canada, but they have to wait until their application is processed in order to be able to stay in the workplace. And that's where they can really disrupt your ability to serve your clients and your employment. So again, if you're unsure, please feel free to reach out and contact me. I'm happy to be able to kind of look at what is your current workplace, what are your options. Don't expect everyone to remember all of this, mostly to understand when you have a question where you can go. So please feel free to contact me. I forgot to mention that under Francophone Mobility, you can make an offer of employment for 2 years, for 3 years, and IRCC will then issue that work permit for the period of time that the offer of employment is indicated. So if you do a 2-year offer of employment, we'll do a 2-year work permit. If you do a 3-year, we'll do a 3-year. It's also renewable. Okay, so after 3 years, if the individual still hasn't received permanent residency or they're unsure but they want to stay in Canada and keep working, you can renew that work permit for them and they can stay in Canada. So again, it does reduce some of that paperwork and the timelines to be able to maintain some of those skilled labors. What it also does is it allows individuals to have the time to gain the work experience that they require in order to apply for permanent resident streams. Most permanent resident applications require a number of months or a year to be able to qualify for permanent residency. And so the longer you can give them that contract, the more time you have for them to gain that and not have to renew the work permit as often, reducing the costs for you as an employer. Just because you make an offer of employment, I just want to say, doesn't mean that you have to keep the worker in that position if they do not meet the employment requirements. Okay, it's like any other contract with any other individual. If that contract or that employment is no longer meeting your requirements, you can terminate. The individual has only authorization to work for you. If they find another employment and the other employer is happy to make an offer of employment, then they can stay. Otherwise, as I mentioned, it is a temporary work permit, so they are required to leave the country. So it's just so that you're aware. Similar, and if an individual comes here and it's not what they were expecting and they want to leave the workplace, you can't hold them here for 3 years because you made an offer of employment. If they want to go home or if they want to seek other employment, they have the freedom to do that. All right, good so far? I'm almost there. I've almost convinced you that Francophone mobility is the way to go. So now you're probably wondering, but how do I find a qualified candidate to meet my labor shortage needs? So there's a couple of different recruitment tools and some that are specifically there to support Francophone immigration that isn't necessarily offered under general economic immigration pathways. The one that is there for all employment needs is, of course, the job bank under the Government of Canada, as it was also a requirement to have a job posting for an LMIA under the platform for job bank. Now it's a free platform, so you can sign up, put your job posting on there. For the first 30 days, it's only open to Canadian citizens and permanent residents. And once that 30 days is up, if you haven't filled the position, it then opens up for any temporary foreign worker that is registered on Canadian Job Bank to be able to access and see your open vacancy. There is a tool on Job Bank that also matches individuals, and so I always encourage employers, if they are looking for Francophone, to utilize the Francophone mobility pathway to have your job posting posted in both official languages or demonstrate that there is a potential advantage to have the French language skills within the workplace so that you can identify individuals that might already meet as they would self-declare that they have that skill in their application. Another tool that I like talking about specifically for Francophone immigration is, so my team works with the international missions abroad, who do a lot of work in promoting Canada as a destination to work and gain meaningful work experience. And so there's a lot of skilled talent that are looking to come to Canada for that work experience. And we've created also relationships with the public employment agencies abroad. So you think of them as the Service Canada, but of Morocco, Senegal, France, and they have their own job bank, and where they will post your job vacancy for free on their platform, demonstrating and trying to help their citizens find meaningful work here in Canada. And so when they post their job vacancy for 30 days, they'll then receive all of the interested applicants. And then once the job posting is closed, they'll send you as the employer all of the resumes of individuals who apply for your job posting. And then you can go through the various candidates, identify those that you want to maybe connect with and have an interview with. And then if you find a skilled individual that you might like to make an offer of employment to, then you can do that and know that you are likely able to tap into that Francophone mobility work permit. So it's a free service for you as an employer. All we need is for you to provide us. So myself, your job vacancy, fill out the form, I send that to the missions abroad, and then we start the process of trying to see if there's individuals who are looking to come here to Prince Albert and to work for you in your workplace in that qualifying position. So again, if you're interested, please connect and I can go through what that process looks like. We also have every year for the past 20 years a flagship forum that really showcases Canada as a destination to work. So the Paris Mission Abroad organizes a big job fair where all the provinces and territories have a booth. We invite the economic development organizations, Francophone organizations, to also be there and represent employers. Employers can also register if they want to go to Paris and meet with candidates. It's a wonderful experience. So the opportunity is there for you to go in person to meet candidates and recruit. If you're unable to do that, Felicité's colleagues who are going to be representing the CECS, the province of Saskatchewan, and the Francophone communities will be there to be able to represent you as an employer. So both in Paris and in Cameroon. Cameroon, Douala, is a very interesting pool of talent because Cameroon is actually also a bilingual French and English country. So they have an interesting profile as being a bilingual to be able able to find also English and French speaking candidates. It is one of the source countries for Francophone immigration as well. So in the last couple of years we were in Morocco. This year we've just decided to go to Cameroon as a second destination, just kind of moving around to give opportunities to different pools of talents and for employers to meet new qualified individuals within the different countries that are interested in and have interesting pools of talent for the Canadian market. There's also an online version, so you can also as an employer sign up for a virtual online booth, and so you can post your jobs in that virtual platform, and on March 3rd, 4th, and 5th you'll have the opportunity to interact with candidates that have signed up for Destination Canada and see if there are any interested qualifying individuals that would apply for your job posting as well. So those are the three options. You can go in person, you can connect with the CECS to have your job vacancy, you can apply to work, to be present online during the forum. To give you an idea, there's about 2,000 individuals in the in-person job fair per day that come through the events. On the online event, everyone that registers has the ability to log on during those 3 days. There's about 120,000 candidates that apply every year to participate in this event. So it's a well-known event in Europe and in North Africa, and so we highly recommend individuals and employers to be able to see what types of pools of candidates are there. Is there anything that you would like to add about services for Destination Canada that you would provide? Putting you on the spot.
You say it so well that I don't know if I would explain as you do, like an expert. Actually, that's the reason why we invited her to join the cyber community. As you mentioned, my role with the CCS is Economic Innovation Advisor, which means that we support communities, employers, as well as newcomers. In terms of Canada Destination, Business for Canada, it's really another good opportunity for employers to have, to hire competencies and skills you could not find, as you say. And we are here to facilitate all those process, all those things you say we cannot even remember. If you never do this, can be very overwhelming. Even myself, I tried so many times with employers. Sometimes I was like, okay, next time was this and this, is it the same? So it's not all the time like easy to go through, but together we are very lucky to have IRCC very open to be with us, to work with us in all those processes. But to be honest, any employer should not struggle to find the talent they are looking for, because there is always a way you can make it happen. But we just need to know who is doing who can I reach out for being in such situation. So at the CCS, we try to listen and to know what is the need. And Canada Destination is, like, as you say, huge, and it's gather a lot of resources, and so many people, who are willing to work together, to get to this pool of talent who really can be a great resource for our community. So we go there at CCS, of course, with a mandate to represent whoever give us authorization to represent them. If you have a job offer, just send your job offer, and we will advertise over there. But it doesn't stop there. Once we have this job offer displayed or be abroad, we work with you when we get those profiles. So if you get to point the number of the profile you are looking for, then we sit down with you as the employer to see what kind of help you need, and then we help you with the process. If there is anything we cannot do properly, we have good resources to reach out. So together it's a really good combination of a valuable service to help you. And again, CCS is the only organization in Saskatchewan who can provide bilingual service in this, what we are talking about. At CCS, we all speak both English and French, so we can help you. Francophone mobility, as you said, nowadays is just the one thing that's very, very handy and like who shortcut all the process, which can make your the application easier. So we can help you through to go through. And if you want to create your job offer, if you want to know when to post it, if you want to know all those small process, if you want support with the candidate who may not do things the right way, we manage to help you. So roughly in two words, it's just like we are here. I will be happy to leave my contact with whoever needs. And spread the words. I think you will help us to make you know what we offer here. So and yeah, I'm happy to be here with you, and please contact me and we will be able to help you.
And I think, one of the additional resources is being able to translate your job posting from English to French, to be able to tap into that pool of talent as well, and to help with the supports needed for the individual once they arrive into the community, so that you yourself as an employer are not alone in welcoming these individuals, but now you can also know that the CECS will also help to guide the individuals in finding the resources in French that they need, whether it's healthcare providers, getting their SIN number, whether they're looking for schools for their children in French. They will provide all of that, as well as you are looking to welcome the individual into the community. So on top of that, I have a resource document so that you know that we, every year, the Missions Abroad do a little bit of the legwork on the ground to see where are pools of talent in what sector in their countries, so that employers are aware of maybe where they can look for individuals in specific sectors that they're looking to hire. So I just pulled out, there's a link to the Global Talent Pool by economic sector. It is a document, a PDF document. It has about 30 pages of all of the different sectors that we have identified in various countries. So it just gives you an idea of the map. So knowing that in the transport industry, if you're looking for a mechanic, industrial mechanics, you can kind of see where some pools of talent where you might want to look for individuals and candidates. So you can use this as a tool to be able to say, Bridget, I need someone in this sector, and it states that there are a pool of talent in this region. Could you connect me with the Public Employment Agency so that I can see what type of profiles and candidates are in the area, and see if there's anyone that I'd like to make an offer of employment to. I also brought up the tourism and hospitality one, as that is also a very popular industry with in demand. So you can see here there's a lot of opportunity, and these are all francophone, bilingual speaking pools of talent. So areas where individuals are, most of the time, individuals where in these countries they do tourism, they have programs and education in the tourist industry. So areas where you can tap into a pool of talent, and again, let me know if you're interested and I can help post those jobs and connect you with. If you want to go do your own mission in a specific area, you've had success finding candidates in a specific region, and you want to go and do a bit of your own in-person recruitment, we can help facilitate that as well. So if you let us know where you're looking to go, we can help connect you with the Mission Abroad, who might be able to provide on-the-ground support for you during your recruitment mission. There might be opportunity even with the CECS that they might do more than just Destination Canada. They might go on different recruitment missions, so knowing where they're going, and if you're interested in joining for in-person interviews yourself, or again, just knowing where they're going so that you can continue to keep your job vacancies fresh with them, so they can continue to look for pools of talent when they do their international promotions of Saskatchewan and employer responsibilities really quickly. I won't go through everything. It's just so that you know that when $230 or you pay $1,000 for the offer of employment, you're also indicating that you are being a responsible employer, demonstrating that you adhere to the all the labor codes federally, municipally, provincially, and that you are creating and supporting a healthy workplace, that you are providing the document to temporary foreign workers that identifies their rights as temporary foreign workers, so that they are aware that they have rights in the workplace and that they also are able to ensure that they are in a healthy and free of abuse environment. You have to keep all the documents for a period of 6 years, so if the IRCC or ESDC decides to do an employer compliance inspection, you need to be able to provide the documents of your hiring and your HR kind of practices for the temporary foreign workers. And finally, the costs associated with recruitment. So if you choose, our wish is that this process and having access to me allows you to limit your need to go towards immigration consultants or immigration lawyers, but if you choose to use an immigration consultant or lawyer, then those fees that you incur in order to recruit qualified individuals is the employer's responsibility. If an individual uses an immigration consultant or a lawyer for their application of the work permit, then that is their fee, but you cannot recover your fees for recruitment onto the temporary foreign worker. So now we're moving kind of into what that retention piece looks like. So an individual is interested in staying here a little bit more long term, you're wanting to be able to support them in retaining them in your workplace. There are various economic immigration programs that support permanent residency. So it's just so that you have an idea of the variety of programs that are available. There are provincial ones, there are some pilot programs that are more based on community. In the Prince Albert, I think it would probably be more so the provincial nominee program, SINP, that would be available for you, or if a candidate is looking to apply through express entry, which is the federal pathway for permanent residency. So as the federal pathway to permanent residency under express entry, I just want to highlight, so a lot of this is more candidate driven. The SIMP might require you to provide an offer of employment in order to support the candidate in the workplace. Express entry doesn't have that same requirement. Once an individual meets the eligibility criteria for permanent residency, typically in Canada it will be 12 months of work experience. Once they meet 12 months work experience, they can create a profile on express entry and indicate to IRCC that they would like to apply for permanent residency. They get a score based on their profile, and then IRCC does rounds of invitation based on a ranking system of a score. So an individual will have a score, IRCC will say everyone that has 400 or more in their profile will receive an invitation to apply, and then the individual applies for permanent residency. What is the advantage if you hire a Francophone bilingual candidate is that we do specific rounds that target Francophone candidates. So everyone that is in the express entry pool that has the French language level of NCLC 7 or higher gets put into their own little pool of candidates, and then we do the ranking system from those individuals and make that invitation to apply. So a Francophone bilingual candidate that meets that requirement could get an invitation under the Francophone stream, under the general economic stream, if they're in a specific category of sector specific that we've also identified in high demand, they could also be selected under there. The only thing with permanent residency under express entry is that the individual needs work experience in a tier level 0, 1, 2, or 3. So the lower tiers 4 and 5 are, we do not have a permanent resident stream. Usually the provinces have pathways for individuals under that. What I would say is the SIMP, I know that they closed their hard to fill positions, but they have allowed the job offer stream to be under an LMIA or the Francophone Mobility Work Permit. So knowing that you can get an individual under tier 4 and 5, Francophone Mobility, 3 years, after 1 year, apply for the job the job stream with SIMP, and they may qualify for permanent residency there. So there is an advantage, not every province has that, so knowing that that's also a pathway towards permanent residency for those qualified individuals, again, helps for both recruitment and retention. All right, I promise, getting to the end of my presentation. I just wanted to highlight, because we are recently, like I said, identified Prince Albert as a welcoming Francophone community. So that means that there is specific resources to help with the settlement process of Francophone individuals within the community. So you know as well, what you may not know is what this does is in the promotion of Canada as a destination, we highlight the welcoming Francophone communities. So we will highlight Prince Albert as a destination of a welcoming community to qualified individuals who are looking to settle in Canada. And so this means that it helps in the attraction of skilled talents for your community. So knowing that you have that kind of stamp in identifier, we hope that it'll help in the attraction of qualified individuals here, and knowing that there are resources, but for you to be an employer knowing that you can tap into the promotion of your city on a global scale, I think is an exceptional tool for you to also attract individuals, and knowing that you're not alone in welcoming them here in the community. And with that, here is the Réseau de Développement Économique. So this is the Economic Development Organization Network in French, which the CEC is part of in Saskatchewan. And so just knowing that you have that network and support to employers and to individuals to tap into the labor market is an excellent resource. And being able to partner with the chamber in that, I think, is a wonderful resource and tool for you. And that is the end. Like I said, I'll share my presentation so you have access to all the useful links that are here. Yeah, I think that's really a way for you to be able to connect. I have my cards here. We have the promotions email address, so you can always email me if there's anything that you want to talk about, learn a little bit more about, or if you have a specific case that you're wondering what to do, please feel free to reach out. That's what I'm here for. You will start to get to know me because I will be coming back. This won't be the last time that I'm here, so hopefully the more you can let your friends and other employers know that you have access to a resource to be able to support your community. I'm really, this is an email you can share.